So my name's Bill Ward, and I am the host of the Billwardlife and the UDR podcast. Athabasca Fort Chippewan First Nation and I teamed up. They had approached me and asked if we could team up and do a recovery summit online every month. And we started this in December of 2024. And here we are in September of 2025. And it's been going very, very well. We started with maybe 6 participants on our first session, and I've seen as many as 30 on certain summits that we've done. And so I've heard some good things in the background and just me living life. I hear people talking about it, and if you want to know more about these summits or you want to know the dates of when they are, feel free to reach out to me or ACFN. We have all the dates set for the months up to December, and we can give your organization or yourself the dates. Anyway, so Recovery Mini Summit, Indigenous Focus, brought to you by Billwardlife and Athabasca Chippewan First Nation. The purpose of these events is to help individuals, families, and organizations to better understand addictions and the spiritual malady that actually is the underlying driver of the addiction. I work with a lot of people in recovery, and almost never do I focus really on the substance. The most of the work I do is on the behaviors and the thinking and beliefs and things like that. And as we look at those things and we change them, which we'll call the spiritual malady, resentments and fear and anger and judgment and all these kind of things that kind of are hidden under the surface. As we work on those things, the miraculous thing is you don't want to drink anymore. So that's what the spiritual malady is, that drives addictions and all self-destructive behaviors. I want to help as many individuals, families, and organizations as possible to become more empowered, courageous, and truthful so that they can help themselves and others in the pursuit of personal, family, and social harmony. I want to share my life's journey of imperfections, struggles, and challenges in relationships and within myself to show and inspire others that there is another way. The answers lie within us. We just have to want it bad enough and do what is required. So today we will be sharing with 3 people. Um, I know all 3 of these people personally, and I do big book studies in the city of Calgary every year or two. And, I just finished one here in, I think it was about May of this year. Started in November of last year, and it kind of, they take about 6 months long. But I saw Jasper and Melissa Marie pop into this one, and so I got to see them quite a bit this year, and we've connected and we've run into each other at powwows and things like that. And Jasper was the winner of one of our giveaways there, and so I've seen a lot of these two in the last while. And so our first speaker, who's going to start at 12:10, is going to be Melissa Bosnack. Bosnack, I think that's how I pronounce that last name. Um, she is a member of the Dene First Nation and is a social worker and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, who has come to value the small, steady steps of recovery. Guided by faith and support of her community, she approaches life with humility and a willingness to learn from every experience. Melissa hopes to offer encouragement and gentle insight to those navigating their own journeys in healing. So I met Melissa, I'm going to say probably, I was at a PPG meeting like 8 years ago, something like that. And I never knew her, but I remember seeing her. And we never really got to know each other for quite some time, but I know she was around back then. And I think she struggled. I think she was coming back in and out there for a while. And but eventually it clicked, and things have clicked in a miraculous way, and she's doing very, very
No,
well.
you're
Her
not.
her life is pretty amazing today. And she's just a shining light in recovery. She's going to tell you all about what recovery has gifted her and how it all goes for her, and just an amazing human being doing amazing things and helping people. It's pretty awesome to watch people do what she's done, and I've seen many people do that. And then after her is her husband, Jasper. He's going to be speaking from about 12:40 to 12:50. Jasper Buckskin is a member of Kainai First Nation, is an iron worker and devoted AA member whose life has been transformed through recovery. and faith in God. He strives to align his daily actions with principles of the program, letting both his spirituality and the program guide his path. Jasper shares his journey to inspire. So I met Jasper later on, and I don't even know when the first time it was that we met, but he's just got a really soft spirit, really beautiful soul, and just just seems like a fucking, excuse my language, like a really good guy. He's just a really good guy, man. And every time I've met him, he's been very friendly and cordial. And I know he dances at powwows and things like that. And he was talking about Sundance here today, and very culturally minded. And he just does the deal too. And when you're in a relationship with an alcoholic like his wife, and she like is in a relationship with an alcoholic him, and they can stay together and be this happy, they got to be working programs, right? Or it doesn't work out very well. So just a testament to the work that they both put in. And then from 1:20 to about 1:30, we have Kaylene Big Crow. I remember Kaylene when I used to work back at Sutina, and she was one of the girls I tried to help all the time, and she was a menace, and she was a menace. But the one thing I loved about her is she never stopped trying. And recently she just took a year. She's got some other things going on in her life that are very positive. Her mom's amazing. Her life's pretty amazing. I'm watching her grow on Facebook now, and we were talking before the other two showed up, and it was like right on, Whitney's on here, and her and I were really helpful or trying to help her. And I said, isn't it weird to like be sitting in my podcast studio talking about sobriety when, it was only like 2, 3 years ago, and you just were like not well. And she's just like, oh my God, it's so amazing. And I said, isn't it so amazing that like me and Ray Don love you so much, and we've always been there. And yeah, and she's just, she's like, I might cry on this thing today. And I'm like, if you do cry, don't stop your tears. Just let them go. But she's just a really awesome girl. She's killing it right now, and we'll just keep on seeing how she does. She's still early in recovery. I'm gonna say a year and a little bit, and that's still early, right? She's got a lot of work to do, but she is doing it, and it's a really beautiful thing to watch. And so she'll be our speaker at 1:30 to about 1:55. Kaylene B. Crow, I'm a Tsuut'ina Nation member. I've struggled with my addiction since I was 18 years old. I'm 32 years old and thriving. I'm now over 1 year sober and in school, building my life and career, aiming for social work. Recovery is where it's at. So those are our three speakers for the day. After each speaker, I'm going to open up the floor to questions or comments or positive, you know, inspirational feedback from the crowd. If nobody wants to step up and say anything, that's fine. I will spearhead questions, and we'll rock and roll. So before we get this going, I'm going to say a quick prayer, and then we will rock and roll. And if you know anyone that might want to join us here today, send them a message, send them a link, uh, and get them on. I.e. Victim Agano, Creator, thank you for this beautiful day today. Thank you for these people, these beautiful people coming, stepping up and sharing their story of their life's journey of addiction and into sobriety, and connecting with themselves, finding out who they are. I thank you, Creator, for this beautiful life that I live. I thank you, Creator, for the things that you've shown me and the lessons that I've learned. I ask, Creator, for prayers for the people out there still struggling and suffering, and that maybe through this technology, we might be able to hit a few of them and inspire people to change and share their own stories. Use those deficits of addiction as assets for our new life. I thank you for my life today, Creator, for Acfn, and for the people in my journey who have helped me. Hi, hi. Okay. Without any further ado, we're right on schedule. I'm just going to introduce Melissa. So like I said, Melissa, I met years ago. She's just a thriving member of 12-step program. I know she follows culture. I see her at powwows and things like that. Um, she's just a shining light of recovery today. Has a new grandbaby, and just so excited about that new life in her life. And I can relate because my daughter had a new grandbaby, and it's just an amazing thing, eh? And so, Melissa, you can unmute and take it away. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. So my name is Melissa Bonsack. I'm married to Jasper Buckskin. Iklanita. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for allowing me to share my story. I do hope that Creator speaks through me and is able to reach at least one person and someone hears something that might resonate with them and help them in their own journey. Um, I live in Mohkinstsis, Calgary, and I was born here long time ago in 1976. My mom's from Denny from the Northwest Territories, and my dad was from East Germany. And that's important for me because both my parents had significant trauma in their life. And I think that, they did the best they could. They loved me and they took care of me. But there was a lot of things that impacted how I started to see and view the world. They divorced when I was around 2 years old. And I lived with my mom, and my mom is a survivor of residential schools. She went to three different residential schools, LaPointe Hall, and I can't remember the other ones. And she spent her summers in foster care. And my mom also comes from a home that was kind of ravaged with alcoholism. So I don't know how many generations back it goes, but it runs deep in my family. And yeah, and so I was raised in Calgary. Sometimes I say, I had at one point in my life 9 years of sobriety, and then I had my first drink. And so, in those first 9 years of life, because my mom was struggling with her own alcoholism, there was a lot of violence in the household, and uh, there's a lot of like domestic violence. My mom was struggling, to be there for me spiritually, emotionally, physically. And, I had a younger sister that was born when I was 8. And, we'd spend many nights hiding in the closet because of the ruckus that was going on in the home. And I remember I was about 9 years old, and the first drink is an important moment for me because I can really see how that Bill talked about spiritual malady. And in those first 9 years, I was scared and I was lonely and I felt separate from, and I was always looking for a place to belong. I was always looking. I felt like I was responsible for everybody. I had to take care of my mom. I had to take care of my sister. And I was about 9 years old, and it was Christmas Eve, and my stepfather was home, and he'd bought some champagne for New Year's Eve. My mom didn't come home. She had her own plans, her own party. And he sat there and he was drinking, and I was 9 and my sister was 1, and he was drinking and drinking, and when 12 o'clock came by, he's like, why don't you have a drink with me? So he poured me a couple of glasses of, I think it was champagne or something, I don't know. But shortly after, my mom came home, and they kind of got into it. And when I went up to go kind of break them up, I fell, I slipped, and I just remember that like that sense of ease and comfort, right? It was the first time in my young 9 years that, I didn't give a shit, right? I didn't have to take care of my mom. I was like, I felt like that warm hug of alcohol. Things didn't matter at that point, and it was just such a strong feeling for me, at that age, that I never did forget it. And I didn't drink for a full 3 years after, but when I was 12, I was starting to steal from my father's liquor cabinet, and blacking out and just getting into all sorts of trouble. And I blacked out one night at my dad's, and he's a normie, and I woke up around 6 p.m. and they were just mad at me, right? And I was confused. I didn't know, like, I'd blacked out. I was like, where did the day go? Why am I soaking wet? What happened? And no one talked to me, and that just brought me to like a place of a lot of shame. And my dad really would always tell me, you're going to turn out like an alcoholic, like your mom. And, in my younger teen years, there's a lot of shame and disconnection, and I felt lost and like I didn't belong. And I think that just fed into my need to drink. And my drinking got quite a bit worse. And I think I was about 16. I left Calgary to Vancouver to go stay with my aunt and uncle, um, with a gentleman that was quite a bit older than me. And in Vancouver, I was introduced to Hastings. I was introduced to crack. I was introduced to a lot of uh, street life that was was so new to me, and was I guess like the excitement of it, right? Having all of this freedom. It must have been about 15 or 16. And my aunt and uncle struggled with hardcore addiction. They were IV users. And my aunt, I really felt that she cared about me, and I would do anything for her approval, for her love. And I didn't realize at the time that she was grooming me. And she groomed me for many, many years, right? And how to get her needs, not drugs and alcohol, through me when I was a child. And it just I took off from that. I came back to Calgary, and I was a low bottom kind of drunk, hanging out at the Cecil, hanging out with all of the bros. And I'd gotten into a lot of trouble. Um, I got into a relationship, and I had two little boys, and broke up from that relationship and went into another one with a gentleman. Everyone who I'd been involved with had struggled with alcoholism. And this gentleman was, he was quite hurt and had a lot of trauma. And we were together for a year and a half, and things weren't going very good. And I was trying to break free. There was quite the abusive relationship. I had social workers involved, police involved, and one night we had gotten into a situation, and I was able to get away. And I woke up to the news that he'd hung himself, and that it was my fault. And his mother was irate with me. And that took me for a spin. And the spiritual malady just took hold at that point. And my drinking became almost daily at that time. I was looking for help. I knew of AA, and I knew of 12-step programs because that my father had introduced me to them when I was and 13, right? And I would go when I was in treatment. I'd been in about 4 treatment centers by the time I was 20. Um, but when this gentleman hung himself, it really did something to me. Um, and shortly after that, my children were apprehended. And this life of loneliness and I guess disconnection, seemingly disconnection from Creator, drove me into all sorts of trouble, and it went on. I first went to AA, or 12-step program, when I was 13, and I had tried for 32 years to get sober through AA, through treatment centers, through whatever means I could, counseling, psychologists, antidepressants, like anything. And I couldn't shake that obsession. I couldn't shake that obsession. I couldn't shake that spiritual malady, right? And it talks about in the book, in in the doctor's opinion, it talks about the cycle. And when I last came to AA, and it stuck, was probably in 2020. I'd relapsed a couple of times, and my sober date is January 3rd, 2021. But I heard someone speak about the cycle, right? And so the cycle in the book is on page X, sorry, XXVII, and it talks about men and women drink essentially because the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, Their alcoholic life seems to be the only normal one. They're restless, irritable, discontent. Unless they get again gain a sense of ease and comfort, which once comes by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taken with impunity. After they've succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, the phenomenon of craving develops, and they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over. And unless the person can experience an entire psychic change, there's very little hope of his recovery. So when that was broken down to me at PPG, right, the cycle of alcoholism, it really resonated because that's what the 32 years of my life had looked like, right? That bad shit would happen. I'd get drunk, bad shit would happen, and I'd wake up like my children were apprehended, and I'd be like, I'm never going to drink again. I'm going to get them back. And everything in me meant it. Like you could put a lie detector test on me, and I meant it, right? And after the firm resolution, I learned that there's this window of willingness. And if I don't take steps, spiritual actions in this window of willingness, eventually this spiritual malady comes back in. And in the book, they describe it as irritable, restless, discontent. But for me, it was lonely, grief, and sadness, a lot of fear. And when that would come in, right, when I'd feel disconnected from community, disconnected from creator, I'd get this mental obsession. And for me, that mental obsession would sound like just one, no one will know. You can start again tomorrow, right? All of these things that I would be telling myself. In the book, it's this part here where it says we can't differentiate the true from the false. So the mental obsession for me would sound like that. And I'd get so uncomfortable in this spiritual malady. It was a very painful experience for me. And the only thing I knew how to relieve the spiritual malady was reaching for substance, right? Once I took the substance, the physical allergy would kick in. And with the physical allergy, I was no longer using to escape. I was using um, to 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 feel this like craving, this phenomenon of craving that I was experiencing. And in my early days, the spree would be one night, and towards the end of it, I was on some good hardcore drugs, and it was like up to a week, right? So my sprees were getting longer, and I'd wake up remorseful again, and I'd have this firm resolution, but I never took any spiritual actions, you know, to uh, to prevent that spiritual malady from coming back. And when that was described to me, it just really kind of like woke me up. It made me see that, if I don't do something, that this is going to be my life, right? That was going to be the only thing I had. My children had watched me drink. They had en encountered a lot of trauma because I didn't understand what alcoholism was, and I didn't understand how to access the power um, to quit drinking. And, shortly after that gentleman killed himself, actually 4 months, I met Jasper. And, my children were in care. I was suicidal. I had fresh cuts on my wrists, I was drinking, and he kind of came into my life, and I seen this this shining prince that was going to save me from myself, right? And I hung on to Jasper, and I made him my creator. And I think that was, one of the biggest things too about addiction is that I was just kind of like, I like it when people say that, alcohol and drugs was not my problem, it was my solution. Because my problem was the spirituality, the seemingly disconnection from creator, right? um, and that I used drugs and alcohol to fill that God-sized hole. But I didn't only use drugs and alcohol. I used gambling. I used men. I used relationships. I used anything. Like I was desperate, you know. But I never used God, and that's why it never worked. And so me and my husband were in a relationship for 21 years in active addiction, and we were both quite violent people, quite angry people. And when we did a lot of harm to each other, and my husband will say we went to the gates of hell, and that we did, and our children watched all of it, and to this day I have to live with that, right? And all I can do is make these living amends to the best of my abilities to stay sober and to work my program as best as I can, in order so that they can see, the spirit within me, right? So that they can see that change is possible, right? I have no control over them now. They're adults, right? They have a God and it's not me. But the only way I can make up, I can never make up, but the only way that I can make amends to them is staying sober and being healthy, and when I made my amends to my son, um, he knew I meant it somehow, right? He knew that, the end of this era of alcoholism for me was going to be over before I knew it was going to be over. And it was very emotional. My son, it was like I could see, 23 years of change just fall from him, right? Just like he was able to breathe. He no longer was worried if his mom was going to OD or if his mom was going to, get beaten to death in an alley, and it was quite amazing. And then, through those 20 years with Jasper, right, we had been on again, off again. And towards the end of my drinking in 2020, and COVID happened, um, I we were off, we were broken up, and my kids had left the house, and I was living with my best friend of, I'd known her since I was 13, and she was a daily user of substance, and I was trying to get sober. And I really wanted it, right? But I hung on to her just like I hung on to other people, the um the saying that, alcoholics don't have relationships, they have hostages. That was so true for me, right? Like I just hung on for dear life. And she was the last person that would kind of tolerate my behaviors. And so I woke up again, I was at the point of being suicidal, and she told me, there's no such thing as a social beep user, right? Eventually they all become daily active users. And I was very scared for that to happen because I had seen what happened to her, and it had happened quite fast, right? And so I found my way into the rooms of PPG, and like I said, I'd been in and out of AA for 32 years. I like to call myself a spectator. I would go to the meetings late and I would leave early, and I had these walls up. I never really got a sponsor. I never really did the steps. And I had a misconception that the program of AA was going to meetings, right? And when I went to PPG, I was soon informed that, that the program of recovery was actually the 12 steps. And that in the cycle, when you have that window of willingness, right, after you emerge remorseful, if you don't take spiritual action, you're bound to go back into that cycle. And for me, taking action was doing the 12 steps. And I had a really powerful, I was blessed with a really powerful sponsor that knew the steps. She did it the old way, going through the book. Um, I think at that point I'd gone to 13 treatment centers, some private, thousands and thousands of dollars, and some, through an IHB, but none of them really took, right? And it was because all they did was block me from accessing drugs and alcohol. And when I got out and that spiritual malady fell upon me again, I could easily access it. I needed something power. I needed power, right? And I lacked the power to keep myself sober. I found out that alcoholism was not about what I did when I was drunk. Alcoholism was about loss of choice and loss of control. And those are the two main things that individuals have when they have addiction, right? So the loss of choice is I don't have a choice whether I use or not. I will use. No choice, right? I've lost the ability to choose whether I use drugs or not. And the second part, loss of control, means that I cannot control the amount of drugs and alcohol I use once I put it into my system. Now, if I was to deal with the second part, the loss of control, the simple answer would be never to put drugs and alcohol in my system. Then I wouldn't have to worry about it, right? But it was the loss of choice, the mental obsession that always brought me back. And so I had to deal with that. And didn't have the power to heal from all the trauma. I didn't have the power, um, to resist the temptation. I had to find a power greater than myself. And, by the grace of God, I was able to find that through the AA program. Step one for me was about, it wasn't about white knuckling it, saying I can never drink again. It was, confessing to my innermost self that I will drink again if I don't have a spiritual experience, right? That it's inevitable that I'm going to die an alcoholic death if I don't get this program. Um, and the unmanageability part in step one wasn't about what happened externally when I used drugs and alcohol. The unmanageability was the way that I thought, the way that I acted, and the way that I behaved, right? Like I seen the world as a scary, unsafe place, and that I had to have all of these coping mechanisms in order to survive. And these coping mechanisms drove me uh, to step on the toes of my fellows, right? I was selfish and self-centered to the very core. I hurt my kids, the ones that I love the most. I hurt my husband. I hurt everybody, just like everybody does, right? And so the unmanageability was within me. It was like I didn't have a drinking problem, I had a thinking problem. And step two, came to believe that a power greater than myself will restore me to sanity. Well, I was obviously insane, right? If you keep doing the same thing over and over and getting and expecting different results, that's like the definition of insane. I thought that I could manage my alcoholism. I thought that I could think my way out. I thought that the program of AA didn't make sense and it was flaky. And how can doing these 12 steps relieve me from this problem I had, right? And it didn't make sense to me, so I just didn't do it. But when I was, alcohol is a great is a great force that made me that brought me to my knees to a point where I was willing to surrender and willing to do anything. So when I started doing the steps, God made the way, right? Creator made the way. Creator brought people in my life was able slowly how to rely on this power that I didn't really like, that I really didn't know, that I didn't understand. And, sometimes, I didn't even believe it, right? Um, like my sponsor would tell me, it's like, it doesn't matter how you feel, it matters what you do. And so just by taking the actions, right, my mind followed. Just by taking the steps, my heart changed. And I think that that was one thing that I just couldn't understand. I thought I had to figure it out before I could take the steps, but that was totally wrong, right? Like I just had to take the actions and then my mind would follow. Step three was a pretty big one for me, right? Turning my will and my life over to Creator. I heard Bill say once and it stuck with me. It's like, it's not like you're turning it over. It's not like you're turning off your will. It's more like you're aligning your will with Creator's, right? Creator's will for me is to be of service to Him and my fellows, and to see God, right? And so when I align my will with Creator, I'm opening up that vessel where God can come and shine through. One way that I kind of talked about the steps was like, if you think of like Eeyore and he's got like this big cloud over him and it's raining and he's miserable, that was me when I had spiritual malady. And above that cloud was like Creator, the sun, right? And through doing the steps, that cloud started to dissipate. It started to move away, right? The wind was blowing it clean and clearing the sky for me. And it says in the book that we felt the sunlight of the spirit at last, and that's how it was, right? Like all of a sudden, my perspectives changed, the way I seen the world. That I was able to identify my character defects and really admit to them. And I was no longer a victim run by the world, right? Like the world would operate the way the world operates, and I was always a victim to that. Now I have the power of creator within me, and there I have choice. I have ability to make choice. And so turning my will and my life over to God is still an ongoing process. I'm coming up in January, but God willing, on 5 years. And there's times that, I don't want to align my will with creator. I want things my way. And, spiritual principles, if I don't live by spiritual principles, I suffer the consequences of that, right? And not necessarily to drink, but if I continue on that path, I will, right? So, I am very quick now to realize when I'm off the beam, because I have chosen to take my will into my own hands and do what I want to do, without disregard for others and without, seeking, asking or praying, to Creator. And so, it's an ongoing daily thing, right? But I'm starting to understand it more. I'm starting to see it better. Step four was, step four, right? We write it all down. I was thorough and honest as I could possibly be. Same with my step five. Six and seven, it's very short in the book, and my sponsor at the time didn't really go into a much detail about six and seven. And I think, I'm really starting to lean into that, learn more about six and seven, my character defects, being willing to, have God remove them. I like being angry with, I like having that self-righteous anger, and I had to pray. I went through a difficult time this year, with my son, and I thought he was in a relationship he shouldn't be in, and I caused a lot of damage and thought I was his God. And um, you know, I think that God had allowed me to go through that situation to kind of see, some deeper levels of these character defects and how the roots are really embedded in me, and how when I act out in those defects, how it hurts the people I love. And it was a storm, but like every storm, right? Every valley, there's a mountaintop. And, after experiencing that, after really surrendering to God, after really surrendering my son over, I'm able to see clearer now. And so I'm leaning into six and seven, really trying to, learn more, go deeper. God has removed my obsession to drink, but I believe it's like an onion, right? Like going through these layers and going to the deep roots of the trauma I experienced. And it's not really even the trauma. It's like, how had I learned to adapt through the trauma, and how those defects, behaviors, attitudes, masks, walls, maybe were necessary to keep me alive then, but how they are no longer serving me, and I'm very blind to that, in a lot of cases. I'm very blind to it. I think that I know what's best for everyone. And a lot of it just comes from my upbringing, having to be the responsible one, having to have control in the house. If I didn't have control, it meant danger, and danger meant like shit's gonna happen. So, I'm always driven, and I still really struggle with needing to control everything, and I can't. Like, it's, turning it over to God, right? Like, God is so much more powerful than me. His plans are bigger than my little, designs, and learning to really trust in that. The more that I am able to turn things over and walk without knowing what the outcome is going to be, like walking by faith and not by sight, and letting go of the outcomes are bigger and better than I could ever imagine. And every time that happens, every time Creator blesses me with that, my trust in Creator, my ability to turn things over to Creator gets stronger and stronger, you know. And so it's been quite the learning journey. 8 and 9 were transformational, like I had a lot of issues with my dad. He'd left me with my mom, and he gave me an ultimatum when I was 9. He said, either move in with me or stop calling me to help you. Right? And so, I couldn't leave my mom in an abusive relationship, and I couldn't leave my sister in that situation. And so at 9 years old, I made the choice to stay in a very violent home. And I had a lot of anger against my dad. He's white, he's male. Like, he didn't understand, right? He didn't understand that the barriers that I had to overcome. And, for him, it was just so easy about like, pull up your bootstraps and try harder, right? But there was this deep pain that I had. I'd been displaced from my home community. I lost my language. I lost my, my culture, tradition. I've lost the roots. And I think that's always stayed with me, right? And I'm always searching, 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 and a lot of it is through colonialism, and he just didn't get it. And so when I did made my amends to my dad, something shocking happened, and he started crying, and he made his amends to me, and it still like moves me because my dad's not like that. Like, he's German, and he, post-war, right? And he's not emotionally available. And he said he was sorry for leaving me like that, and he should have did better for me. And and like I said with my son, he I could just see the chains drop off. I didn't realize, even though I was a child of an alcoholic, and I really worried about the well-being of my mom, I didn't realize how much my children worried about me, and how the way I led my life impacted them, in such deep ways. And I think that when my son knew, like I said before, I knew I was going to get sober, those chains fell off, and I could literally see it. And he actually got sober. I had a few more relapses, but he'd gotten sober, and I think he is like coming up on his 6 years. And so steps 8 and 9, like they're powerful, and I still have a lot to do. Like, I have a lot of living amends. Like I said, I was violent. Like, I was like doing random acts of violence on the streets to people I will never see again. And the only way I can make up for that is just really by continuing to work a kick-ass program, and and help as many people as I can, and live with good heart, good intentions, and the way that we did 8 and 9 was like 8, made a list, right? So I put it in 4 columns, right? Ones I was willing to do right now, the ones I was willing to do later, the ones I was might do, I don't know, like my exes, or the ones I will never do, ever, right? And it was funny how it went that, when I started doing the right nows, the laters went into the right nows, and the maybes went into later, and the nevers went into the maybe, right? And I'd made some amends that God had just put the person in my path that I would never make. Like, I had my heels in the dirt, right? And and bridges were mended, and relationships were mended, and the shame started falling off of me, and I could look people in the eye, and I started to become okay with who I was, right? I started to, like, instead of zoom in to and be so super sensitive and selfish, I was able to zoom out, um which was a blessing. Are we done? And so yeah, when I would zoom out, right, I could see that, it wasn't that I was a bad person, right? It was that I was sick, right? That I'd had a lot of struggles in my life, and I did the best I could to get through them. And by the grace of God, I'm still alive. My uncle, he died on the streets of Hastings, right? And my aunt, not all there, right? And she's still on the streets, and if God hadn't walked with me through those 32 years, I wouldn't be here, because the situations and the places I had been. 10, 11, 12 are super important, right? And I'm not the best at 10, right? Like spot checks. And I'm working on it. I sometimes I have a timer on my phone to check, how I'm feeling, because I'm very disconnected in body, mind, and spirit, and I'm trying to bring that together. right? That sometimes I don't know how I'm feeling going through the day. I'm on autopilot and I don't know that I'm scared or resentful or angry or frustrated until I blow up. So I'm working at getting more in tune, and doing those four things, right? When when I when I'm noticing that I'm off during the day, right? Pray, call my sponsor or someone in the program, um, make amends if needed, and turn my attention to someone I can help. And then, my nightly inventory, is it could use some work, but it's all progress, not perfection. I actually started my steps on steps 11, where I learned to do prayer and meditation right off the hop, and that served me well. It made me have a good routine. When shit hit the fan, I knew what to fall onto, right? I knew, because prayer and meditation was so important at the beginning. I use it daily. I Throughout the day, I'm constantly praying to God. I love God. God saved my life. He saved my family, and step 12, I do have sponsors and I do whatever I can. If I'm asked to do service speak, I'll do it, and I just took on some service positions. And that's what keeps me sober, like working with somebody. Initially I was working with people because I had to stay sober. Now I do it because, I want to give back what was freely given to me, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. It took me a long time to get the program because I was full of ego and I was full of fear and I was but you know, thank God alcohol had brought me to a point where I became surrendered and willing to take direction. And if anyone out there is struggling, there's lots of avenues to recovery. For me, AA was the solution. um, yeah, and I encourage you to reach out. Every time, it doesn't matter how many times you fall. Like me, I was a chronic relapser. It only matters how many times you get up. Lean into God, lean into your pillars. It doesn't matter how you feel, it's what you do. Yeah. I think we're there.
We're there. Awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome, Melissa. Thank you. I want to ask a couple questions. If anyone on the screen wants to ask or give any comments, just get them prepped up here. I'm just gonna ask a couple things that kind of came to me. So you've been to like 13 plus treatment centers
Hmm.
and detoxes,
Oh yeah.
and then you went into a 12-step room where they're very like in a way they're very strict to like the book,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And then you heard something which was the alcoholic cycle.
Hmm.
And hearing that alcoholic cycle was the game changer, right? Did you stay sober once you heard that, or
No,
was it just
no.
embedded in your brain and you knew what was going on now?
Yeah, it was actually quite funny because I stood up and I said, "Why don't they see this in other rooms?" I'd been in rooms for 32 years. I just wasn't listening, right? And yeah, it's stuck in my head because God removes the scales from your eyes, right? And pulls the cotton out of my ear. All of a sudden, right, when Creator's timing was right, I was able to hear it. And it kept me in the room because it made sense all of a sudden, right? That because before it didn't make sense and I had to have something that made sense, that
Mm.
resonated with me. Yeah, very.
And and the honest truth, I'm just gonna speak my opinion candidly right here. The honest truth, Melissa, is I do go to 12-step recovery too, and I don't honestly think that that message of the alcoholic cycle is carried. And a
Mhm.
person could be in and out of rooms for 10 or 20 years and
Mhm.
never hear that piece. And that's
Mhm.
why these pieces are so important, right? And that's why the
Mhm.
message that you shared today is so important because, you described the alcoholic cycle, which is one of the things that made me go, what the hell?
Yeah.
I thought I made the choice to drink. Every time I
Yeah.
picked up a pipe, I thought, oh, I just make bad choices. I
Yeah.
realized after understanding the alcoholic cycle is no, the drugs and alcohol make the choice. And if I don't have a spiritual experience or change who I
Mhm.
am, I'll always pick it up, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah, so thanks for sharing that. And another thing you said was you didn't have the power to fix your own trauma.
No.
And so what about recovery has helped you with your trauma?
Creator,
Right.
creator, right? He removed the scales from my eyes, right? I was full of shame. I had self-hatred, right? I thought I was undeserving. Um, and not, I don't blame my parents. They just like, and I was an alcoholic from the shoot, right? And so not being able to feel connected to people, right? I felt I was wrong and I thought I was broken. And then Creator has been gently and kindly, taking those labels off, right? And showing me that I'm worthy and that my worth and value don't come from relationships. They don't come from um, material things, right? It comes from creator, that I am made in the image of God, that I'm worthy. At the worst moment of my life, like the worst moment, I was just as worthy as the day I was born. Do you know what I mean? Like my
Hmm.
worth and value doesn't fluctuate. It fluctuates when I take my worth and value and I put it in someone else's hands, right? Because they're only human, right? They have good days, they have bad days, right? And if I put my worth and value into their hands, then my worth and value fluctuates, right? If I take my worth and value and put it where it's meant to be with Creator, it doesn't fluctuate, you know. Like I'm forgiven and I'm clean and I'm good, you know. And not every day is that simple, but
Hmm.
that's what I fall back to on those bad days. Yeah.
And putting your worth and value into somebody else is like taking them hostage, and it's totally unfair to them.
Yeah. Having to have the expectation for Jasper to fix me, someone that was he never broke, and with all of these layers of trauma and complexity and stuff, and right, just fix me, right? And he doesn't have the capacity. It took me a long time to realize that not that he doesn't love me, right? He didn't have the capacity, he didn't have the power to do what I needed him to do, right? It's a long time I was like, I was push pull, like you love me, you hate me, you love me, you hate me. And because I didn't understand what relationships were, healthy relationships, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning, right? And that he's an individual with his own struggles, right? And his own trauma, and that I can't fix him. I think just being brought up in an alcoholic home really twisted and skewed my ability to understand what healthy relationships look like. I'm and the trauma, right? When I think that my family, people I love, are in danger because of the suicides, which is like 13 plus suicides, in my circle after this gentleman committed. We had what did they call it? When the whole group of people connected to this individual, there was about 6 or 7 committed suicide in 2 years, within 2 years, right? Very close to me, right? And so when I think that my children are at risk of something, I just go straight to like, oh, they're gonna die, and then I get really fearful and I get driven by fear, and I have to really unlearn those coping mechanisms, right? And what's really helped me is that, I love my children so much, but Creator loves them infinitely. I am power. I only have so much power, but Creator's powerful, right? And that Creator is the one that will protect them when they're adults. Creator is the one that will provide for them. That is no longer my role. I have to let them go. And that's been really challenging, like, because I'm scared. This world's a scary place. Like, there's lots of things that I'd be scared about, but I can't live in fear anymore.
I love that. I learned that lesson too, that my kids are not my kids, they're creators, and
Hmm.
creators got to teach them, and they got to do whatever they
Hmm.
need to do with creator. And
Hmm.
basically it freed me, and it took me away from like trying to control their life and like making
Hmm.
things worse, and
Hmm.
right? Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. And just finally, before I open up the floor, what's your, like you and Jasper have been through hell and back and made it this far, and you guys are doing so well. Like, what are the things that are that make a healthy relationship at least this far in your journey?
Well, I struggled with forgiveness, right? And I'm sure he did too. And one thing that Paige told me was He's not that person anymore, just like you're not that person anymore, right? And you can't keep him or have the same expectations of his behavior when he was back there as you do now. Let him grow, let him learn, let him thrive, right? And let him explore himself, his own like recovery, and trust in God, right? Like, so like, it was like all the things that had happened in those 21 years. Oh, and I was listening to the speaker's tape and it was talking on like forgiveness and step four and stuff. And he said, if you're really struggling to like forgive something that somebody's done, he's like, think of the four worst things that you've ever done, like how you've like really hurt somebody, right? And he's like, and then stop and think about how you felt about yourself, how you felt about your life, right? And I did, right? And I was like, when I was doing things to hurt other people, um, I was empty, I was broken, I was alone, I was disconnected, right? And I was just trying to like survive emotionally, right? And so like, and then so I'd seen Jasper as like broken, um, hurt, disconnected, just trying to survive emotionally, right? And it turned from anger to not pity, but sadness, right? That he didn't do things to hurt me. He was doing things to survive in his own addiction. And it
Mm.
just like turned it, turned it a bit, right?
Yeah.
And and that's like, after that, everything is, I've had to make a decision that what happened in those years stays in those years. And that now we look forward. We're looking forward. We're not looking back. We're looking forward, and we have a sister-in-law in recovery, a daughter in recovery, in 12 steps. Like our recovery has rippled out to family, to community. And by the grace of God, we're still a unit. Like we still are together with our children, and our grandchildren. And, God, our creator is good, right? I just had to see that. I needed like those clouds to dissipate. So I wasn't a little Eeyore anymore, that I could like stand in the sunlight, yeah,
Mm.
and
Beautiful.
see how good creator is and how beautiful this world is.
Thank you. That was amazing. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Melissa? Anyone from the floor want to say anything to Melissa before we switch speakers?
I do. I was trying to be polite, put my hand up. Thanks for the opportunity, Bill. Hi, I'm Lisa, and I am an addict addicted to more. And I'm really grateful to have listened to. I'm sorry I wasn't here from the beginning. I was up in my head being all selfish and self-centered and scrolling through my Facebook and I saw something that looked like a better alternative to the way I was feeling. And when I came in, you were speaking my language. I really am grateful. Also, what Bill brought up, and also the way you talked about the obsession was also interesting to me. It really made me feel like not so alien. You hear people say that they feel certain ways, and it just makes you feel like, okay, well, I'm not just completely like I'm a little mental, but I'm not completely mental.
Mhm.
So I'm really grateful to have heard because I've actually had one of the most difficult 24 hours that I've had in a long time. And I needed this, and that's what this is all about, right? That sharing. But like it was said, like there's so much more. And I have that trauma stuff too, and just hearing how other people use the steps to help them with that too is super helpful for me. And yeah, so thanks so much, and it was awesome. I wish sometime I'll have to hear the first half. And thanks, Bill, for putting this on.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for sharing, and thank you, ACFN, for allowing us to put this on. And these recordings all go onto their website. They also go on to my YouTube channel. so they're always able to be re-listened. Did Janine want to say something, I think?
Hi, I'm Janine. I'm an alcoholic. I appreciate your share and thank you, Bill, for doing this. I just wanted to say how I've related to Melissa, to you about the violence in your home. And from an Indigenous point of view, um, I'm also, my camera on, I'm also a half breed. And so that's followed me all my life. But just growing up with the violence and having the anger issues myself as a result of trauma, and the lunch and learns that I listened to this week on residential schools and so on talked about how broken the families are as a result of addiction and residential schools and so on. And it's a lot of work to recover. It really is, layer after layer. And it skewed my relationships as well, especially with men. And because of some of my traumas from my male figures in my family, not sexual abuse, just emotional and physical, basically. And I was thinking how where I grew up, men were someone to be fought with. Kind of
Yeah.
how I thought about it. Just kind of like what I got from my mom, the alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I really, again, appreciate you saying that. Like I had anger issues and got an assault charge, and I wasn't drinking at that time. That's how much
Yeah.
anger I had, but it was a solution to all the pain, which brought me here and so on. But thank you again, and thank you, Bill.
And thank you. Thank you for everyone joining us and listening. And we're going to switch speakers here. If anyone wants to quickly jump on and share one more thing with Melissa, feel free. Okay, so Melissa, if you could mute and camera off, we're going to swap you out with Jasper, and we will get that ready.
Oh, hey,
So,
Bill.
yes, Andrea.
Sorry. Yeah, I did. I'm so slow. I was trying to find the mic. I did want to say something to Melissa. Thank you, and I really appreciate your share. It was very beautiful, and I related to a lot of what you said. The main thing that stuck with me was how you turn it over to God and Creator, and I believe that the battle is not mostly with the drugs and alcohol. I think the battle is within yourself, and not understanding how to take those life lessons as lessons and not as torture, torment, and things to hang on to. So I really appreciate that you said that, because living by words is fine. You can follow a book, but yes, spirituality is number one. When you start to begin to trust God, trust Creator in your path, and just live each day by following and understanding that you are here for a purpose, and it is beautiful. We fall aside by tormenting ourselves with our past when we give it to Creator and understand that it's life lessons, and when we live by those lessons, people can understand us and why we change when we do sober up, and we do appreciate life the way we do when we are in sobriety. So spirituality is a big deal, and yes, thank you for mentioning that, and thank you for sharing your story, because you said many things that we need to hear.
Bill, you're muted.
So next up, sorry about that. We're going to get right to Jasper. And Jasper, if you could unmute and unmic, and we will get him rocking and rolling. So yeah, I met Jasper a few years back now, and over the last couple of years, we've gotten to know each other quite a bit better. ran into him at the Kainai powwow. He was dancing. It's always good to see him. He won some giveaway stuff at the Sioux powwow. And you're wrong headphones.
Those?
Yeah, those are the ones, bro. Wireless.
Oh, okay. I hear you now.
Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. So
I know,
Jasper,
eh? Yes, sir.
you're up, my friend. Take it away, brother.
Oh, okay. I'll try my best. Hello, my name is Jasper, and I'm a member of the Blood Reserve, Kainai, and my wife just spoke earlier. Her name is Melissa, and I just want to start with something that I always try to start with every time I'm asked to speak and be of service, because you know, I suffered from alcoholism for, geez, over most of the time I've been on this earth, and I've been sober, right? And so to me, it was just a way of life. It was just like, it was just something that was always there, right? And I just would like to start with this because it wasn't until like I got really, really involved with this program of recovery and this program and this way of life that, and this fellowship and this connection with my higher power, creator, God, I like to call him God, that things really started to happen to me. And it was when I started to do things in my life that I was able to see and understand, why I was the way I was and why I did the things the way I did and how I was powerless, and how my life was so unmanageable, right? Even when I thought that I was in control. And so I just like to read this part here. So it goes on to say, this is the how and why of it. First of all, I had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, I decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be my director. He is the principal. I am his agent. He is the father, and I am his child. Most good ideals are simple, and this concept was the keystone to the new and triumphant arch through which I was to pass to freedom. And I couldn't really understand that part at the start, because I was born on the Blood Reserve, and my parents, they were totally different from each other. Like they grew up in a time like when maybe just that generation before them, their mom and dad, they were born in teepees, they were born on the prairies, they lived a traditional life, and but that was taken from them, and they were taken into residential school, right? And that really shifted, that household. That really shifted that and that family dynamics, that really shifted a lot of things in their world, right? Like it taught them to be, it taught them, well, it taught my father, like my mother never went to residential school, but it taught my father a lot. It taught him how to hate, it taught him how to manipulate, it taught him how to bully, right? And all these things that it taught him, it was passed on, right? And it was passed on to me. But I got bullied by him, right? He was so, but it took me a long time to really realize that he did it out of love. Like he did it out of protection because that's all he knew. He didn't know any other way. He didn't grow up with a father. He didn't grow up with a mother. He grew up with, in the way that he grew up in residential school, and he grew up with, he grew up with, you had to fend for yourself, almost like prison, right? That's how I compare it to, because, in my life, I was just, it was just another thing that happened to me. I graduated to prison, right? I heard about it enough. People talked about it, and I thought it was just, that's what happens to a native man. You do these things. You end up going to jail, right? It's like a badge of honor, right? It was a manhood thing, right? And I worked my way till I got to it, and then it was just another part of my life. But growing up, I didn't grow up in an alcoholic home. I didn't. I grew up I grew up in a dry drunk home, right? I grew up in a violent like home. My dad was violent. I remember him fighting on the roads. I remember him swearing and yelling at us. I remember him choking my younger brother up against the wall, right? And these are things he just learned, behaviors that he learned from maybe his dad, because my grandfather was an alcoholic. and he had so many children, and none of my father's siblings are close. But my mother's side, like I think she was the saving grace for my dad because she never went to residential school, and her her dad did, and her mom did. But back then, we were just talking about this over the weekend because that my parents are getting older, and I wanted to visit them and see how they were doing, and I just wanted to know like what happened, like, how was their life, because we're coming up on Reconciliation Day, and it's very important for me to understand, like because this holiday, people died so that we can have some kind of recognition of what happened. So, they have a lot of stories to tell, and these are stories that, were never told. And so they told it to me, like what happened to them, and how my dad had to go to residential school because not out of that he was forced or taken, because they didn't do that to them when they were at his time, right? It was a choice. And for him, it was the only choice, right? My his grandmother put him in there because his father was an alcoholic and his home was just horrible. I used to hear stories about it, right? How violent my grandfather was. And I always often tell them, listen to this, because my other grandmother on my mother's side, she died young. So my grandfather was alone his whole life, so he was living the life of a single man. And my other grandparents, like, so I didn't really have grandparents growing up. So I didn't know what it was like to have loving grandparents to go visit them, and how they spoil and dot over you, because that wasn't my case, right? I was like taught to be silent, to be not to be seen, not to be heard, to go play outside, to not to get in anybody's way. And I believe that kind of carried on in my life because when I went to school, like my dad was so hard on me that I was like, there were like two people left in the school I went to. I went to a school off the reserve, but it was in a small town, and it wasn't that bad of a school, but there was just only two people. There was just natives and non-natives, and the majority of the non-natives were white. So I got bullied a lot, but not by the white people, but by my own people, right? Because there was only like two people in my class, in my whole school, like that still wore their hair long, right? And I wore my hair long. Like, I wore braids, and and I didn't wear them proudly, right? It was just life. That's just the way things were. So I got picked on a lot by other kids, right? By my own race, right? And so it really had a hard effect on me, and I learned a lot of character defects that made me struggle in life. Like I learned how to use humor as a defense mechanism. Uh, I learned sarcasm. I learned manipulation. I learned all these bad things like that to avoid being, being bullied and picked on, right? And I'd go home and I'd tell my dad, like these things are happening to me. And his residential teaching would kick in, and he'd say, just go and stand up for yourself. That what do you want me to do? If I go there, it's going to get worse. You need to stand up for yourself. And he just didn't have that mentality to understand that I was so scared, so full of fear, and I didn't know what to do. And what I was doing wasn't working. And so then my life just got worse and worse and worse. And it's bad for a little kid to be like that, right? And eventually I just got tired, real tired. And then I was like, okay, this is it. It's not going to happen no more. And then I started to fight back. And then I just, and then it turned to the worst because once I started to fight, things got bad. I learned how to be a bully, and I learned how to be the one that wasn't getting picked on. I was the one that got picked on. And my dad tried to shelter me. He tried to keep me away from alcohol and drugs. And so he would just like be really militant with me, right? I grew up on a ranch, and he would just keep me like isolated, right? Isolated. He'd always say the same thing, your friends they're losers, they're never gonna amount to shit, they're never gonna be anything, right? You're better than them. You listen to me, you're gonna have a great life, right? But I had no life. I just had him and my mom, right? And Melissa will atone to this today. I still really rely on my mom and my dad, right? Like they're my like I'm gonna say like my pillars, right? But it's just because that's all I had. And so when when I started, my friends started to experiment with alcohol, and I waited, and I didn't start drinking until I was late in life, right? I was maybe about 17 because I was so under his thumb, my father, that he wouldn't allow it, right? And I had a younger brother. He died from alcoholism. And, he started drinking early. He started running away. He started going to group homes, right? He started getting taken away from my parents because he was being defiant. And we were never close, right? Because he got taken again, separated so young that we were never close. So he left, and then we just kind of like not real brothers, just like brothers, if anybody understands what that means. Just brothers in the label, not in really sense like the brotherhood, And so, I started drinking about 17, and there's parts in this book here that kind of helped me. Like I used to didn't really understand it till there's like eye-opening moments in this book where I understood like, I didn't wasn't what I didn't like the taste of alcohol. Right? It took me a while to get this, but when I got the message, it was like it was the effect of alcohol. And it was like one of those aha moments, like it was mentioned earlier by like Melissa when they talked about like the cycle of alcoholism, that spiritual malady. And me, it was just like the effect. When I heard that part in the book, the effect of alcohol, like what it did for me is what changed my life. Like what it did for me, like the way it was easier to be around people. It was easier to relax. It took all these fears away. It took all this stuff away, and it made life so much better, right? Until it didn't, right? Until it didn't, right? My friend was sitting on the back of a truck, and we drank and I didn't feel nothing. And I thought, oh, this is cool. But I felt good. Like I felt relaxed. We talked all night, sitting in the woods. And then the next time I drank, I blacked out. And I woke up. I woke up in the back of a truck, my head on an old farm jack, if anybody knows what those are. And my dad was looking for us on the highway, me and my brother, right? And and from that point on, I never looked back. I just kept drinking, and my drinking just started to progress. Like I suffer from the disease of alcoholism, it's a progressive disease, right? It'll kill me. Left to my own devices, my drinking and my alcoholism, it will kill me because it opened the door to other substances. It opened the door to a lot of things. And, once I lost the power of control, right? And once I lost the power of choice, my life was just unmanageable. I was run by alcohol, right? I was run by alcohol. Everything in my life revolved around alcohol. Right from that point on, if I wanted to go to a barbecue, if I wanted to go to a concert, if I wanted to go, anywhere, alcohol was it, right? And so my life was just upside down. And what happened is I moved on. Like I tried different things. I never went to AA. I struggled for, I don't know, over 10 years with it. And I never went to AA. And I remember one time, the very first time I was thinking about considering my life was unmanageable. I went to tell my dad that I was an alcoholic, and he just said, he got really, really mad. And he flipped out and he was sweating around. He says, "You're not an alcoholic." He says, "No son of mine can be an alcoholic." And I didn't know what an alcoholic was. I just said, "I'm an alcoholic." I said, like, things happen to me when I'm drunk. I can't control what happens to me when I drink. And things are starting to happen. My life is spiraling out of control. And then so I just went to treatment my first time. And, but I wasn't ready. I just kept drinking, had two children, had two small girls. And then I moved away. I damaged that relationship and because of alcoholism, and I moved away. And I moved to Calgary, and then I ran into Melissa. Me and Melissa, we met, you know, and I just continued from there, right? I just continued from there. And I remember her boys were small. You know, our children were very small back then. You know, my daughters were just little. One was still in diapers, and her boys were just small, right? Just like, you know, 6, 5, just, you know, and there's pictures of us where they show us, like, you know, the graduation of how they grew up throughout the years, right? And I look at those things now and I'm like, wow, that's just very strange, right? It's very hard to take sometimes, right? Like all those years to realize how, you know, our children are 30, 28, 29, 26, you know, and our children are all doing well. And we have 2 grandchildren now, you know, all of them are going to school or they have some kind of like, they're not the problems that we thought that I would have, right? They're just great, great kids. I can't expect anything more out of them, and I don't. You know, they're just gifts, gifts that need to be appreciated. And so, in all those years when I was drinking, I didn't understand like what was going on. And me and Melissa, I often say this a lot. You know, like we went through the gates of hell together because I put that woman through hell, right? Through literally through hell. I was so self-centered and I was so selfish, you know, and I was so fearful. I didn't know how to love, right? I didn't know any of that. I didn't know anything. I just knew drinking and violence. And you know, and throughout our life we started going to AA. You know, we started trying to go to AA. I started going to jail. I started going to treatment centers. And then there were these lines I thought I'd never cross, right? I was like, well, I'm not an alcoholic real bad yet because, you know, I'm not on the streets, you know, I'm not doing hard drugs, you know, I'm not now I've gone to detox, but you know what? I did all that, right? I did everything I said I would never do. I did it all, right? And even that, right, didn't stop me. Didn't stop me. Talks about in a book that frothy emotional appeal, right? And even that didn't work. You know, my mother crying, my wife Melissa crying, my kids begging me. None of that. You know, getting fired from jobs. All these things didn't. I couldn't see. And this whole time is weird. I was going to AA, right? I was going to AA. I was going to AA because I thought nothing else works. I went to counseling. I went to ADAC. I went to all this stuff. I went to sweats, right? I got my face painted. Like, you know, I did all these things. You know, I'd smudge. I'd do all these things trying to find a solution to make my life better without drugs and alcohol. Anything to make it better. And AA was just, it just wasn't it. It didn't work. It didn't work. Nothing worked, right? Going to see a going to see a holy man didn't work. And my father, you know, you know, he's an elder too on reserve. I grew up all around it. And it didn't take. It didn't take. And then what happened is I all those years, like years down the road, and then you know, me and Melissa were on and off, on and off, on and off, and I was living at my mom's. I was staying in a room, and I had 10 pairs of shoes. I had a computer and a phone, and I was working for cash. The last thing I had left in that made me who I was, that made me not bad, was I still was able to do my job. But even that I couldn't do. Right? I was working for cash. I was only going to work like maybe 2 days a week. And then I remember one night I went out, and Melissa was by then she was sober. She was like 3 months sober, 4 months sober, and she was always sending me this shit. Sorry, she was always sending me stuff, like sending me little notes, like, you know, daily reflections and all this stuff. And I was like, oh God, right? And I had a big book, but it was sitting on my dresser, covered in dust, right? And I just, you know, I was like, I always kept looking like, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. The answer's in that book. I'm going to read it. I'm going to know this. My life's going to change. I'm going to get my wife back. You know, everything's going to happen. And then it didn't. It just didn't. And then my last drunk, I went out and went to work, got drunk with a guy from work. went to a barbecue, rose hell, got kicked out, called my daughter to pick me up, rose hell with her all the way home, passed out, woke up. My mom was on the phone with somebody and she was talking to somebody, and I thought, oh, great, somebody wants to borrow money from my mom. So me, as the good son I was, I got up and I said, okay, well, what's going on? What do they want? Who are they? And, you know, me not paying any rent there, eating their food, putting them through hell, right? And she says, oh, they want, your auntie wants me to write a letter to your cousin. He's in treatment. And by then, Melissa was already telling me I should go to treatment again, right? Again, again, again. And I was like, doesn't work, doesn't work, right? And then so all I had to hear was my mom saying that she had to write a letter, and probably the, you know, the advice of Melissa. And like I said, that she talked about this window, right? You know, like I was at the point where I was at that part where, you know, I was full of guilt and remorse. And then there's that, before that firm resolution, you know, I was like, I was in that part where I was able to hear, right? And it, you know, it talks about in the book, like that's the part where you're supposed to go and try to help somebody is when they're in that moment, when they're just after drinking, right? When they're just in that point when they're all full of that remorse, right? And I was able to stop and hear the message, right? And I was just like, okay. When I heard that, I said, I can go. I'm not doing nothing, right? So I went. And I said, you know, I said, God, if this is your will, then you'll help me. And that's all I said. So I called, and then the places, you know, I knew that Fresh Start and all these other places, they're like 6 month waiting. You have to call every day. I called, and I got into a treatment center, a men's treatment center, and boom, right away I was there within a week. And I went there, and then Melissa said, well, this isn't going to work unless you get a sponsor, right? And then so she hooked me up. And I said, okay, well, I'll do whatever it takes, right? I'm already here. I'm not doing nothing. So she hooked me up with a sponsor. And this sponsor, like, I don't know. He came to me every day. And me and him didn't get along. We did it. Like, we're two different personalities. Like, he was, first of all, he was white, right? And not only was he white, he was like real white. Like, real, like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't even think he was an alcoholic. Right? I didn't even think that, you know, there's anything wrong with him, right? And I was like, what does this guy know, right? Because I was so ignorant, right? And so I didn't know, right? I was terminally unique, right? Nobody drank like me, nobody thought like me, nobody looked like me, nobody acted like me, right? And then this man came every day while I was in treatment. He said, you do what they tell you to do, Jasper. Do whatever they tell you to do. Then he said, and he looked at me and he said, but I'm going to tell you something. He says, when I come help you, I want you to remember this right now. And he says, me and you are going to make an agreement on this. I said, what's that? He says, I know everything about your recovery, but you know nothing. I looked at him. I said, do you agree upon that? And he said, because I know nothing about my recovery, and my sponsor knows everything about my recovery. And I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. Easy, right? And that was the lesson, right? Obedience, right? Like I have to learn to be obedient. Like I'm defiant. It talks about it in the, you know, in the book, right? You know, we alcoholics are, you know, we're disobedient, right? I need to be obedient. I hated authority. I didn't understand rules. I fought everything. But this man came and he told me all. He came and he worked with me. He told me these things, right? He started talking to me. He started reading from this book, right? And it's hard to read because I don't understand it, right? But he started to read from it, and when he did, like things started to happen, right? Things I couldn't explain happened, and he would start telling me, he says, when we're done this, Jasper, he says, you're going to turn around, you're going to take somebody through this book, the same way I took you through this book. And I said, no way. I said, I'm not here for that. I just want to get sober. I want a good life. He says, all right. And he says, you know what? We'll see, right? You know, things are going to happen. We'll see. If you do the work, what I say, things will happen. So we started doing these things. We started doing the working through this book. And, you know, I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, and I understood why, you know, and I started these aha moments started happening. And then I remember when like he comes from a group, right? And it's a group that meets in Calgary, and it's called PPG. And They read from the book. It's very different. Like I grew up when I was in the AA meeting, listen to Forest Lawn, right? Forest Lawn is where all the to me that's where all the hard alcoholics are at. I need to go like seek out sordid places, right? And I'm not saying there's nothing bad about them. Right? I just there's a lot of recovery everywhere. There's great recovery, right? I just couldn't hear it, right? I just couldn't hear the message, right? I just couldn't hear it. And when we started going to this group, they would read, and then he started telling me, went through these steps, and then came to step 3, and he said, we're gonna do step 3 in the back. And then in that group, they all go in their back and they stand in a circle and hold hands and they pray, and then we get on our knees, and then I have to say a prayer from deep down within in my own words. And like when we're in there, like in my culture, like and where I come from, they have this thing called the sun dance, and when they feed, like when they feed before every ceremony, they feed the people. We eat first, then they do the ceremony. But they pray. So in that moment when they're gonna give everybody out all the rations, all the men will go into the middle, and all the members will go into the middle and they all kneel down and they all put one hand on their shoulder, right? And then they put one hand on the food and then they pray, right? Very powerful, right? And you see something like this, right? Because it's all about service, right? They're there not to be ego. They're there not to be, they're there to, they're going to feed people, right? They're going to feed people, the old, the sick, the children, anybody, right? It doesn't matter. They're going to feed. They bless the food, right? And then so when we went into that room, they had this thing. And when they did that, it reminded me of that. And I said some words. I don't remember what I said, but from that point on, like I broke, right? Something inside me broke. Like something, whatever it was, like it broke. And so, I just changed. Like something changed. Like, and things start to really happen after that. They really started happening. Like the obsession was removed. I didn't think about alcohol. I did my 4, I did my 5. And then when I did my 5, you know, they say in the book, take that hour to reflect upon the thing and pull down the book. Is the foundation solid? Is it built? Is my foundation solid, right? And because I'm trying to walk through this archway of freedom, right? And did I miss anything, right? And then something happened because I remember I went back to Melissa's and I was sitting there and I remember I was staring at the ceiling after what I did, right? And then I just started crying. Like I don't know what happened, but I just broke down and I just cried. And I felt like this, I don't know, I felt like this real wicked, like just a peace. Like, it's just a weird cry. And then things started happening again, right? Things started happening, started moving along, started doing more of the steps. And, I remember walking back one day from the treatment center. I'd lost my license like years ago. I was suspended for life, never to have them, lost them indefinitely. I remember I was walking one day and I was walking to Melissa's and I looked up and I said, God, if there's ever a way I could drive again, I'd really appreciate it. If there's anything I can do, if there's anything that, any way, if there's any way, right? I was already going to court and treatment for 2 impaireds, right? Looking at jail time, like, because I had a bad record. COVID was around, and I went to court and had to go to court over phone, and things worked out. I didn't go to jail, and next thing they said I could get my license back, right? Just like that. And I was blown away, like blown away. So now I have my license, and these are just things that are unexplainable to me, right? Because if I just keep doing the next right thing, right? If I just keep following these spiritual principles, if I just keep remembering that AA is part of my life, right? And that, and it says in this book that this book, all it is it's just a way to find a power greater than myself. That's what it is. That's the whole purpose of this book. And it says that right in this book. That's the whole purpose. And that power is my own conception. That power, that power could be creator, power could be anything, but it has to be something greater than me. It has to be something that's not human, right? It has to be something that I don't know, and I come from a very spiritual family. I come from very spiritual people, right? And there's ceremony, all this and that, and that didn't help. It didn't. It made me more. It talks about in the book. It made me one of those people that you try to tell me about religion, and I'll tell you about religion, right? You try to tell me about who God is, and I'll tell you who Creator is, right? Because I think I know, right? But I didn't know. It wasn't until I truly gave my life to this program and I understand how, that it's this upside down kingdom that I have to come from the service end, and I have to strip everything that I am, and be reborn, right? Like it'll say in the last part of this part here, it says here, it goes on to say, when we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. I had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what I needed if I kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, I became less and less interested in myself and my little plans and designs. More and more, I became interested in seeing what I could contribute to life as I felt new power flow in. I enjoyed peace of mind and discovered I could face life successfully. As I became conscious of his presence, I began to lose my fear of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. I was reborn, and that's a promise, and me and Mus have had this opportunity to see Bill. We went to his big book study, and like I said, the more we get involved in this program, the more I try to help others, the more I try to be of service. And like the way this book, it opens up, more and more will be revealed to me. And it truly is remarkably true because, from what we learned from Bill's study, just from what you hear and you're able to open it and able to understand like how it can help other people, right? And not just help other people, but to help me get closer and closer to a living, loving God, right? And I'll share this before I go. Like, I remember I was sitting there and I was sitting on the grass and I was just crying. I don't know why, but it came over me because like to see all of us in this moment, like my kids are all there, my in-laws were there, Melissa was there. Melissa came over and what happened? She hugged me and like I was just like I was like I couldn't like I couldn't stop being grateful. For what God and what this program did, right? Because I was a selfish, self-centered, violent man, and to see like be on this side, to be married, me and us had a beautiful wedding, beautiful. To see our kids and to be around that, it's just like God is so good, and life is so good now. Like life is so good. It may not be of all the things in the world, but I got what I need right now. I always say this thing, and I still have the same wife, same job, and the same dog, but the only thing that's different is me, right? And it wasn't until this work, I did this work, that I was able to really see what truly being happy and at peace is like, right? And all I want to do is give it back. I want people to experience this. I want people to whatever I can do to try to help somebody that's suffering and tell them, it doesn't have to be like this. There's a way out. Help. I don't care how bad you think you are, how far you've fallen. Like people can. be reborn, reborn, because it talks in his book that there's this power, it's unlimited. And I like the way that word is power, right? It's power. That's what it is. It's power. It's power to have this life where, man, anything is possible. Right? Like, he can move mountains, right? The days of miracles, they're not over, right? You just can't see, right? There's people here that are living, walking miracles. People that come from that had nothing, right? That but overcame the greatest thing that was the crutch in their life, right? To being or a life where they can be of service and help others, right? And that's just, that's a miracle. Thank you. Am I good?
Bro, you're fucking great. Holy shit, man. You're gonna make me friggin' cry here. And, and why? Is because you're telling my story. Like, I got to live my whole life the way that I lived it. Everyone gets free will like me. I did it the way that I wanted it, and I hurt a lot of people, and I didn't do it very good. Then I come in and I do my steps, and I do my recovery, and I get another chance to live. And I get the second chance of my life as the gift, and my gift back to my creators to live my life that creator would want me. And that's what you're saying, right? And like there's no words. There's no words to describe like what happens. In my podcast, I describe it as the God dope, right? This is the dope that we were looking for the whole time we were using drugs and alcohol, but we find it in our creator and God and service and these things. And you just laid it out so friggin' beautifully, man. That was really
Mm.
powerful. And it's not all the time that I get big book thumpers on these speaker things. And a lot of Indigenous people think that the 12 steps in AA, it's all colonial and all this stuff. And but I'm really happy that you and Melissa talked about the steps today and how powerful they've been, right? And you mix culture in with that. And with those two things, culture and the steps, like life's unshakable. Hey?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with the culture to help like amplify your spirituality?
Well, lately now, like I always had, I never used to, I quit dancing. And then I started dancing, I started going to powwows, and I partake in my father's ceremony, and I'm trying to, I go home, like I've been going home to see my parents, and I try to learn the language, and lately I've been having like this thing inside of me where I'm like, and I think that's just the part of the growth where like I want to find out, like I want to know more, right? Like I want to go deeper into like these these ceremonies, right? Because um they were there for a reason, right? And that's inside of us, this is who we really are, right? And and I think this, like, through doing this work, right? Because like I said, I tried going to sweats, I tried getting my face painted, but I didn't know this connection. And there was a time when I was trying to quit drinking. I rode my horse into the buttes because they're sacred. I brought smudge with me. I got down. I lit the smudge. I lit the sweetgrass, and I just started crying and praying. And I was like, I'm telling you, my alcoholism runs deep. Like this is when I was about like 19 years old, and I tried to do this, right? But didn't do any action. That's the key. That's the key. I never did any action. And it wasn't until this program showed me that it's a program of action, right? These are action steps. If I don't do these action steps, I can't find out, you know, why I am the way that I am. And I don't have a God. I don't have a creator. I have a conception of it, but I don't rely upon it. I don't trust in it. I don't have any faith in it. And the more I build this faith and this, 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 this trust, then this avenue of things will happen, right? Like ceremonies, like sweats, like learning my language, these things that I used as excuses to behave the way that I did, right? You took this from me, you took that from me. I am this way because I don't know what these things mean. And that's just sloth, right? That's just laziness on my part. That's me not willing to step forth out in faith and go and seek these things, right? I need to do these things, right? I often tell my son this, like, because he's the same way. Like he doesn't really rely upon that. One does. He's so into it, and the other one doesn't. And I can't force it upon him. Just like I can't force this program on anybody, right? All I can do is tell him, like, one day something will happen where he'll want to seek it out, right? And that's just the way the world is. Because I'm not God, right? I'm not creator. I can't play it. I can't do it. I can't wrest satisfaction out of life from anybody. All I can do is just I can do me, like what my sponsor says. I'm only responsible for this little hula hoop that I stand in, and that's just it. And there's lots of ways that we can go, that I can do these things, right? It's just I have to be willing to take the action to find out, right? We have a beautiful culture, right? Every one of us come from something, right? And it's there. Just like this program's freely given to anybody, that stuff is freely given to anybody to ask. You
What I
know,
want to emphasize here before I turn it over to the floor, and anyone on the floor, if you want to give comments or questions to Jasper after I'm done the statement, feel free. Um, Action, right? A lot of people can get sober, but then the insanity comes back and we pick up again because we're not doing action, right? And I've met a lot of people that the action that they take is maybe it's yoga, maybe it's just working out at the gym, maybe it's doing things. But at some point, like those things aren't enough, right? The book talks about we can wish to be moral, we can wish to be philosophically comforted, we could will these things with all of our might, but the needed power was not there. And you describe the power that comes through the action parts, right? Like if I believe in God or creator, I can believe, but it's only a conception, an idea. How we need to have God work is like in and through us through the action, right? And that understanding doesn't come until you take the action, right? Like we can think we're all connected and all that shit, but until you like really do the action, then you're connected. God's fucking there, right? And there's a big difference, right? And that's what I try to teach people. That's why I do the service work I do. And like you said earlier, I just want everyone to have this. I would just, it's there for everyone. That's why I do it too, bro. Like anyone can have this feeling of God dope in you. And then the natural way of a human is to serve and love and give. And that's what happens through the steps. You become authentically who you were meant to be, which is like a version of creator. And you remove all the things that we weren't, like the anger and the violent and the resentment and the hate. And you know normal therapy modalities focus on a lot of the things that you know um not the deeper ways of like becoming who we are, right? And so to me, and I'll finish with this, there's levels of sobriety too. There's like white knuckling, I'm sober. Dude, you're settling for crumbs. You may as well go drink and hopefully get desperate enough to do this. Or there's like mid-level sober where, life's pretty great, but I'm sober and it's okay. But like there's some upper level sobriety and we call it recovery. And recovery means the process of getting well from an illness or an injury. The illness or injury that we're recovering from, Jasper, as you well know, is a spiritual one of nature. And as we focus on that, never mind the alcohol and drugs, because it's never been the problem. It's the solution that quit working. And if we don't work on the deeper rooted shit, the insanity to drink or use again comes back. And the problem with us is we have an allergy to alcohol and we don't know when we're coming back or if we're coming back. So, I commend you on your share and your story. Does anyone have any words for Jasper or questions or anything before we move on to Kaylene? We will be going a little bit over, and I'm sorry about that. But in the same breath, like in our culture, healing takes what it takes, and today's a healing ceremony. This is a ceremony, and sometimes it takes what it takes. So just stay tuned, and we're just going to keep going after these questions for Jasper. Anyone want to share?
I just wanted to say thank you to Jasper and Melissa. I've been struggling really badly these past couple of months, and I've been in and out of sobriety. I've been a chronic relapser, like Melissa was stating, and like it's really fucking hard. Like it's not. It feels like it's not getting easier as soon as I get sober. Like things start to happen, and I just want to like say thank you so much. I needed to hear what I'm here for a reason, and I needed to hear what I'm hearing right now. So thank you, Melissa and Jasper. Your guys' stories really inspired me today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chantal. Anyone else? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay. So Melissa put her number up. Jasper put his number up. You guys can reach out to them. I'll put my number up there too. We're always there to take a call, help inspire you. But at the end of the day, you got to take the steps, man. Like, and I mean like the action, right? So we can only do so much, but we're always there to take the call and be a pillar in your life. So thank you, Jasper. If you can mute and camera off, we'll get Kaylene switched in there with you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasper. Okay, kids, it's been a great day healing and honoring our illness and our spirituality, basically, because we should like take this illness seriously, right? Like it's nothing to be messed around with. It takes lives on a minute by minute basis, and it surrounds this building. I do this podcast live from 12th Ave and 9th Street, Southwest Calgary, and so my studio and office is here about 3 blocks away I live, and from the walk from here to there, I could probably encounter probably 50 people on fentanyl or meth or alcohol, and it's really, really bad in our city right now, and people are dropping like flies in this world. So, these little things that we do help. So next up we have Kaylene Big Crow. This is her first time sharing, and I'm I'm so lucky to have her here for her first time sharing. And I asked her a couple months ago, and she was a little bit nervous, and she wasn't really sure if she had a story. And then we chatted, and I said, "Dude, you totally got a story. Like everyone's got a story. And I knew you when you were a menace, right? And like, look at you now." And something that you say on your story can help somebody. And that's part of what you've heard today. The service part is so important, and sharing our story actually heals our deep subconscious wounds as we keep sharing these deep parts, and it gives room for other deeper parts to come up. And Kaylene's just a shining light, just doing so many cool things. And I know there's a lot of really happy people to see her shining her light and doing well, and so we'll get her on here. Kaylene, can you un unmute and uncamera?
Really hot in here.
There she is. Yeah, I know it is hot in there. Do you want me to open the window in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll come in and open the window. Okay, anyway, before I go open the window, let's get her going. So yeah, Kaylene from Tsuut'ina Nation. I think part of her roots are from Stony. Is that correct? Part of
Yeah,
your roots are
I
from Stony?
am. Yeah. Okay. One second.
You're good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, girl, you're up. Let's hear. I'm coming in to fix that window.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kaylene Big Crow. I am from Tsuut'ina Nation and Minikni, Alberta. I am 32 years old. I've been in my addiction since I was about 18. I guess I'll just start off with when I realized where my addiction started. Um, so my parents been together up until I was about 18 years, I'll say 17 years old. Um, we were living in town in Calgary after like the whole BBC days, and when people got evicted there due to like asbestos and all that. We did manage to get our own place, and then we eventually moved in town. Uh, I lived in the city with my parents for maybe, I'm not even sure, maybe like 4 years. And then we eventually got our own place. My dad actually got his big house built up in Sutton. And we lived there together as a family. There was me, my mom, my sister Cody, and that. And we lived there together as a family for about 1 year, I would say. And I don't know, like things just kind of went to shit after that. Um, my parents split up. I was about, yeah, 17. I thought at that time, like while my parents were going through all these um, challenges in their relationship, I thought this was a perfect opportunity for me to, I guess, leave. Just leave that house, and because I felt like I had more freedom. And so I eventually moved in with my cousin in the city. But I forgot to mention, like before all that happened, like when I was in junior high, like I started like grade 7, 6, I started smoking weed. Um, Started smoking weed, got addicted to it. Yeah, I got addicted to it like early junior high school. And eventually that led to alcohol when I was about, I'm gonna say like 13 years old. I remember we were at Chinook Mall, and me and my friends, we somehow got like a 40-pounder Silent Sam. And my mom picked me up from the Chinook Mall, and I was just real drunk. And that was the very first time I got caught drinking. So, anyways, that all happened junior high, and then high school is when my parents split up. And I'm not trying to like blame their marriage or anything, right? Like I do come from an alcoholic home. I come from an alcoholic family, like, and I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot, right? It's just how my life went. Um, okay, my dad was like um really violent, mean person. Yeah, so I don't know. I thought I had that opportunity to leave, just leave. But, yeah, to just leave. I thought, well, I have more freedom. I'm gonna be 18 soon, and so I left. I left, and I was on my own for a bit there, maybe like just less than a year. I was out living with my cousin, and that's when my drinking started more, like hard alcohol. And I remember when I was about 18 years old and first started doing cocaine. And then I thought like one line you can OD, right? Like I was so new at it. Like I'm scared to do 2 lines. But you know, once you try it, you're like, oh, you just get used to it, I guess. But I wasn't like a chronic cocaine user. I was more of hard alcohol, vodka. So after all those years, um, just straight vodka, and then when in my early 20s, I got into a 5-year relationship, um, and that was just like crazy. I our drinking just kept getting worse and worse. And yeah, just violence, right? Like I was violent. I was a violent person. Um, like I didn't know any better. Like whenever my feelings got hurt, I would actually punch like my partner in the face and just like give it to him, like just beat him up. And yeah, like I went through a lot in those 5 years and I didn't know any better. And so that lasted till I was like 25. And after that relationship, oh, and I forgot to mention, like I used to play hockey too quite a lot. So that, and my mom was like, she was always there for me, always taking me to hockey. You know, she was pretty much a single parent, just always taking me to hockey and practices. But at the, you know, I was still into weed too. So I feel like that kind of stopped me from like pursuing hockey once after I turned 18, because all I wanted to do was drink and have my freedom. So, and then, yeah, anyway, so fast forward to when I was like 22, I got into a 5-year relationship. That happened. And COVID 2020 is when shit just went crazy. I kept drinking. I broke up with my common law. I felt like abandoned. I felt lonely. I felt just alone. So I kept drinking, and you know, because when you drink and you drink with people, you feel like you're loved, even when it comes to like intimate relationships. And I really liked what Melissa said about alcoholics. Like they really can't differentiate reality from how do I say it? They can't differentiate reality from how do I say it? False truth from false. So I was in that for quite a bit. Uh, I used to think I had relationships if I would have a loving relationship if I drank. So as the years kept going, you know, I got into these relationships, but it was just nothing but drinking. And I used to think I loved them. And, you know, it's just crazy. It's just crazy how, like, alcohol just makes you think. Like, you just think so fucking different. Like, and so, anyways, I guess what, yeah, basically my alcoholism was just that trying to fill that void of loneliness and like just feeling normal to me, right? Just trying to get out of reality. And even the friends that I had to really let a lot of friends go. Even though like they didn't do anything wrong to me, but like if drinking was the only thing that I had with that relationship, then I just totally just dropped everybody, right? And it was more for me. It was more for myself to have peace. And I just had to be alone. Like I couldn't be around anybody um, to heal myself, right? So in 2020, I, I did go to my first treatment center in BC, which was it's called Cedars in Vancouver Island. I was there for about, I'll say like 70 days, 75 days. After that first treatment center, I came back to Calgary and I lasted for about 4 months. I stayed with my sister at her place for maybe about two. And then because the house that I was living in, like no one was there, right? Nobody was there. That house was just like pretty much abandoned, dirty. And while I was in treatment, my mom actually like cleaned the whole house. And you know, when I was drinking in that house in 2020, up for like a whole year, like I swear I brought bad things in that house because when we when I got sober, even if it was just like a couple months, 3 months sober, you know, like we tried praying for that house, and I I swear I heard, like, me and my mom both heard, well, I don't know if she remembers, but we heard something in the basement. And you know, my grandpa was there praying. And then that's when I just like cried. I just bursted out crying, and like I couldn't believe it, right? Because it's like all those years, like that whole year of just drinking and doing cocaine, right? Was just like brought so many bad shit to that house. And anyway, so I went to treatment, and then I came back 20, same year, 2020. I was sober for about 4 months, and that was the longest that I've ever stayed sober at the time. So I relapsed after that 4 months. So 2020 and it's 2025 now, but in between those years, I got really hooked on cocaine. Cocaine led to crack. I was really addicted to crack at one point, where I would go party at that red carpet inn, right? Because there'll be a whole bunch of native people there just doing drugs. And it's crazy because I had a DUI too. And I had a DUI. It took me about 3 years to get my license. But when I got addicted to crack, I was, I still had my car and I had my interlock. And somehow I freaking passed those 15 months with my interlock. I did fail about 3 times, so that's why I got extended to 15 months. But I used to smoke crack and drive my car. Like, I used to smoke it and be like, oh, I wonder if it'll pass. So I smoked the crack and then I blew and it worked. So I was like, you know, just doing that for a bit. Crazy, crazy shit that I've been in. But that was about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And so, anyways, fast forward after that, I decided to go to treatment again because in that December of 2022, that's when I was like hooked to crack, right? And then January comes and I was really like, you know, high, talking to people to try to help me. Like, I need to go back to treatment. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm so depressed, right? So in January of 2023, that's when I started making connections to go back to treatment. And I believe that's when I met Bill. Um, he came to pick me up, but this, you know, at my place, but I barely made it because I was out all night, like doing cocaine, just like drunk, right? And he seen me like at my worst, and he picked me up, took me to the airport, and I flew to BC, and I went to Red Road Recovery. I was there for about almost 3 months, I think, 60 to 60, 70 days maybe. So that way I got back from BC 2023 in April. Then again, I relapsed. I didn't last long. I probably lasted about 2 months. I relapsed. Yeah, probably relapsed for a good year after that. But it kind of got worse where, you know, cocaine wasn't really doing, well, it did, but whenever I didn't have the money for either of those, I was in another relationship at the time where we would crush up his pills and we would smoke it through a can because, you know, we didn't know how else to get high or we didn't have any money, right? That was in, yeah, 2023, 2024. 2024 was when I actually stopped talking to this person. That was in the springtime. I just kind of just dropped everybody. Still tried focusing on myself, but I had slips, right? Like I would drink by myself in my basement, like just total, hermit, drinking 40 pounders to last me like a week or a few days. No job, no income whatsoever, but I somehow still got the booze. And I would go into started stealing from my mom and my stepdad, like out of the change jar. And so in September 2024, I thought, well, what the fuck am I gonna do now? And so I went to school. I enrolled I totally skipped the part where I went to USC in 2023. That was before I went to my second treatment center. I went to USC for 2023. I was doing good. I was in, my Bachelor of Arts, Indigenous Studies, still in my addiction. And I just totally fucked that up, right? So fast forward to September 2024, I enrolled myself into Bullhead Adult Education, which is not just upgrading open studies, trying to like refresh my brain a little bit, and then what do when I got that first check? I did the same fucking thing. Same fucking thing. Just drank, I drank. When I started doing cocaine downstairs by myself in my room, like secretly. So I realized when I went to school in 2024, that first week, it was only 1 week into school that I missed, that I realized, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm just doing the exact same shit. So that's, when I stopped and there's like so many things I can talk about. Like I got jumped, right? I got really badly beaten up. Was it last year? I think it was earlier last year, 2024. About 2 times. Anyways, I started progressing, like getting beaten up and getting into trouble like that. So that too made me really stop. But yeah, I think when I realized like what the fuck am I doing was after missing school and just spending my whole check stupid shit. That's when I quit and that's when I stopped. And I don't know what it was. Like it just hit me. Like that just hit me. Like doing the same shit repetitively, my life not going anywhere. That's I think was number one for me. And then once I like started, taking it day by day, I started praying. I never really prayed in my addiction, ever. I didn't believe in prayer. I didn't believe in anything really, because things just weren't good, like working out for me. Like I think I was more like a insecure too. A lot of insecurity running my like run in me. I mean, like in me, a lot of my insecurities. Like no one loves me. Who's gonna like me? Like, am I gonna be alone forever? Shit like that, right? So I would drink. But yeah, when I sobered up, I started praying a lot and I started going to the gym. And I swear to God, like I keep saying this to everybody. It sounds so cliche, like how you say, the gym saved my life. But it really did. Like it really did. And it's kind of cliche to me too. Like creator saved my life, the gym saved my life. Like you feel like that's all bullshit, right? But once you live it and once you actually go through it, like you fucking believe in God so much. Yeah, so I pray a lot. And I work out every day. I think that's what keeps me going too, is working out every day. And then I don't want to forget to mention my whole family. Like my mom, my sister, my, you know, my biggest supports, are my family. And they keep me going. So fast forward to a year later, uh, I think it's like it was around my 10-month mark where, or 9 months actually, where I realized I'm okay without alcohol. I'm okay to be around people that are gonna drink. Like it could be different for other people, but for me, around 9 months is when I could handle it, where I was like, okay, you know, maybe the gym too really kind of speeded up my recovery. Ah, and it really did save my life because the doctor told me like she thinks I cured myself because I was like pretty overweight in my addiction. I was just bloated, right? Like I was just like I looked so different 2 years ago. I would say a year ago, even a year and a half ago, and so the doctor, yeah, told me I think I cured myself, and I do believe her. And I did pray for a family one day, and I ended up meeting somebody at the gym. Now I'm 3 months pregnant, and I have a little blessing of my own to keep me going in life, to keep me on this path. And I believe and my mom says too, I believe that's what Creator does work in mysterious ways. So I'm really happy to become a mom and to just be a healthy parent to my children and yeah, keep me going in this life. And as for education right now, I'm putting that on hold. But I still do plan on doing social work next spring or fall. I would say fall. So, yeah. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but yeah.
Aw, what a great way to end. This little gift that you have, this little creator gift in you that's helping you stay sober. And your mom truly believes that that's part of the plan, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, because there's still that little thought in my head that's like, I think I'll be able to have a drink one day when I'm on vacation. Or, like there's still that little devil in my head that's like, thing.
Hmm.
So, um,
Does
and
that
I would,
little voice scare you?
no, not anymore. Not anymore. I feel strong now. Like I do pray a lot. I smite, and I would never put my child through the shit that I've been through. And that's like really pushing me to be a better person and just continue with this sobriety.
Well, you can always reach out to my daughter Lucy because she just had her little baby, and your babies will be kind of close-ish in age. So,
Yeah.
what's been the hardest part of the the journey?
Mm, I think it would be like just thinking I'm alone all the time or if I'm forever going to be alone. That loneliness, that was hard. Been hard. Um, but at the same time, like I had to distance myself from everybody to get to where I
Mhm.
am right now. Like I said, even though they didn't do anything to me, and I don't know if anyone in here is watching, but if I ever left you on red or if I didn't reach out to you, I'm sorry, but I was just trying to heal myself. But
Mm. What's been some of the best parts?
the best part, getting my health back, being like really healthy, and my baby.
Aw, you're amazing. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Kaylene, I see lots of love on the screen. Does anyone want to unmute and say something?
I do.
You're up.
I don't know how to put my camera on. Do you know how?
Yeah.
Hi, Kayleen, it's Ray. I just wanted to let you know that you're such an inspiration and like I've known you for 5 years and where am I? Oh, there I am. I've known you for 5 years and throughout those years you can always I knew that there was always something inside you that was, so full of love and light. And even like through your addiction, you always had a smile on your face, even through your darkest times. And I'm just so proud of you because like you've built this life that you didn't even think that you could have, and now you have it. And it's just beautiful to see you thriving. And like you inspire me because I've been trying to be consistent at the gym for like 7 years. And watching you go every day and like, oh my gosh, you totally remind me of your mom. Like you two are like, total health like enthusiasts and like mental health, wellness, everything. Like it's just beautiful. Like you and I know your mom has a story too and not giving up and you not giving up and me and Bill never gave up on you and you just, everything that you learned, you just were like, that's enough. Like I've had enough now. And yeah, it's beautiful to watch and I'm
Yes.
so happy you got to share today. That's
Thank
exciting.
you. I forgot to mention you
Yeah,
too. You
you
were
did
there for
it.
my whole recovery. Like you guys saved me at my worst, both of you guys. Like just hey, just out of it. Yeah.
But look
So
where you are now. You should be super proud of yourself. And I can't wait to meet your little baby and, my grandbaby and your baby. We're gonna have little play dates soon. So,
yes,
and
yes,
Jill, oh, and Lucy's baby,
yeah.
Bill's baby.
Bill.
Okay, love you.
Thank you. Love you.
Anybody else?
Was that good enough?
That was better than good enough. Arlen, are you trying to unmute? Let's let him figure that out. Yeah, that was so good, Kayleen. Like, that was so good. You didn't read off a piece of paper. You kind of articulated it. You ran through the timeline of your life, and
Mhm.
you only had a certain amount of time, and I couldn't have asked. We couldn't have asked for anything better, and
I totally
it only gets better.
yeah. I totally forgot to mention that I have my own place now. Um, yeah, I just recently got my own place. My next step is to get my own vehicle. And I'm very grateful that I have my license back now for about 3 years. Yeah.
And your blow box is gone.
So gone. Never again. And don't do what I did. Don't do crack and blow.
Jesus, there were some comical moments to your share too. I loved it. Does anyone else have any words for Kayleen before we shut her down today? Okay, kids, that's gonna
Arlen's trying to speak.
Arlen,
Yeah, but he can't unmute.
I'll ask him to unmute.
He said he's having trouble.
Tam, can you ask him to unmute?
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Chantal.
I just want to say thank you, Kaylene. You made me cry and you made me laugh all at the same time.
Oh, thank you.
And
I
I'm
know
really
I
proud
did.
of you. I'm so proud of you. Like, I have been going through a lot myself and hearing people's stories like these past couple days. Like, I finally just got back into AA and um,
Mhm.
I'm just really grateful that I came across Bill's thing on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm really grateful to hear your story. Thank you for sharing that. You're
Thank
strong
you.
and you're amazing, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, well, we can't get Arlen unmuted, so we're gonna have to, I'll speak for Arlen. Kaylene, I'm so proud and happy for you. I really love you, and I hope to see you soon, and I'll give you a big hug. That's what Arlen was gonna say.
Very good.
And Chantal, you got my number too. You can reach out. You might
Yeah,
need a little ass kicking here and there too.
I do all the time. Thank
Hello,
you guys.
can you hear me?
Arlen, you're good.
Hey, wait, sorry, I had problems with my mic. Kaylene, I just wanted to let you know that you're, because me and you have been on the recovery path there for the same amount of time, and you're like one of the last people I drank with. So understand, I've seen your journey, and I just want you to know that your your recovery path has been contagious. You know, there was times when I struggled and I like just you being there and you being my blood, you know, it trickled onto me and it helped me keep going. So I just want you to know that, you know, what you're doing right now is just it people see it, you know, and it helps. It gives people strength and it helps, like it's contagious, you know? So and I just want you to tell you how proud I am of you. So and I love you, and your story almost made me cry, and I'm sitting here watching my nephew play hockey. But I just
Thank you.
want you to know that it's contagious. It helped me, you know. Like you see me and healthy living there in groups, and we've been to AAs together. But there was times where I almost gave up a few times, but and I just didn't show you. You know, there was days where we would talk and hearing you. There was days where you had bad days, I had bad days, and on my bad days, you helped me. So I just thought I'd share that, and just to let you know that what you're doing, it helps others, you know. So
Yeah. Thank
yeah,
you.
and our family, our Big Crow family, you know, they see it, and you know that we got to start just sticking together and helping each other. So I'm really proud of you, and I just thought I'd say that, and I love you.
Thank you. Love you.
Mm.
Hi, hi. Okay, kids, that brings to the close another episode of ACFN and Billwardlife doing the collaboration for Indigenous in Recovery, giving our people hope and all people hope. This isn't just about one race. This is about all races, but um, it's also about inspiring our Native people, our First Nations people to take the steps because it's hard. And so thank you everybody who joined, and these sessions will be live on ACFN website. They will stream live once a month, and they will also be live on my YouTube channel at Billwardlife. And I thank everyone, and thank you ACFN. I know that the reps couldn't make it today, but that's all good. They'll be here next time. And thank you everyone. You got the numbers if you need to reach out, feel free. Hi, hi. Have a good day, everyone. And thank you, Tamara, who's always behind the scenes doing the recording and the arranging. And she never gets the accolades, but she's always here and always there. Thank you, Tamara. Love you.